What comes to mind when you think of deserts? Most people picture vast, empty landscapes. But buried in this one is a kingdom so rich in history. Its story spans thousands of years. It's an island where ancient legends come to life, where the world's most luxurious cars race against a backdrop of ancient forts, and where a spirit of incredible innovation meets a deep respect for tradition. So forget everything you've heard about this place, because in this video we're uncovering the true Bahrain. For more than 5,000 years, this island was a huge deal, a place of trade and life that ancient civilizations like the Sumerians, Babylonians, and even the Greeks all knew about. They called it the Land of Immortality, or the Great Paradise. You want to know why? Back then, this desert region had something truly special: a ton of natural freshwater springs and lush green fields of palm trees. It was like an oasis in the middle of a vast, salty sea. And it wasn't just a pretty place, it also became a global hotspot. Bahrain, known then as Dilmun, was an important link between major civilizations. Think about it. It was a perfect pit stop for ships travelling between Mesopotamia, which is ancient Iraq, the Indus Valley, in what's now India and Pakistan, and even the Nile Valley in Egypt. It was a bustling commercial hub, a sea transit point connecting the east and the west. Then fast forward a few thousand years, and Bahrain's story gets a new chapter. Because in the 1600s and 1700s, it was ruled by different empires, including the Persians and the Portuguese. But in 1783, something big happened. A powerful tribe known as the Bani Utbah, led by a guy named Ahmed al-Fateh, took control. They originally came from the centre of the Arabian Peninsula, but they were great sailors and traders. So they ended up settling in places all along the coast, including Bahrain. In fact, the Khalifa family, which rules Bahrain today, was actually a key part of this larger tribe. So when I say that Ahmed al-Fateh and his crew took over in 1783, it wasn't just a random event. It was the culmination of this powerful, seafaring tribe putting down roots and starting a new chapter for themselves, one that would change Bahrain forever. Although for a long time, the Khalifa family had to deal with a lot of regional squabbles. So to keep things stable, they signed a treaty with Great Britain in 1820. This basically made Bahrain a protectorate, meaning Britain was in charge of its defence and foreign affairs. This partnership lasted a long time, until 1968, when Britain decided it was time to pull out of the Persian Gulf. With the British gone, Bahrain had a big decision to make. Should they join a larger union with the neighbouring Arab states that would later become the United Arab Emirates and Qatar? Or should they go it alone and become a completely independent country? After some back and forth and a failed attempt to create that larger union, Bahrain decided to do its own thing. They chose to be a sovereign nation, and on August 15th, 1971, they officially declared their independence. It was a pivotal moment, a clear declaration that Bahrain was ready to stand on its own 2 feet. After independence, Bahrain created its first constitution in 1973, which set up a legislative body called the National Assembly. But that didn't last long, because just 2 years later in 1975, the emir or ruler disbanded the assembly. Sheikh Isa bin Salman al-Khalifa felt it was getting in the way of his rule, so he removed the sections of the constitution that gave power to the legislature and continued to rule without a parliament. And as you can imagine, this created a lot of tension. This tension grew even more after the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Now you see, during this time things got pretty tense. Bahrain's population was mostly Shia Muslim, but the ruling family was Sunni, and that created a lot of friction. So after the 1979 revolution, the Shia community here felt empowered and started pushing even harder for more democratic representation and an end to what they saw as discrimination. The government tried to calm things down with a few small changes, like expanding an advisory council in 1995, but honestly it just wasn't enough. It led to a difficult time with a lot of clashes, bombings, and mass arrests. It was a tense situation that just kept going, to say the least. And then in 1999, after his father, Sheikh Isa, passed away, King Hamad bin Isa al-Khalifa took the throne. He knew things had to turn around, and he started a whole new chapter for the country, one focused on major reform. He kicked things off with something called the National Action Charter. It was this big plan to transform Bahrain, and he let the people vote on it. The people went to the polls, and guess what? Overwhelmingly, they said yes. This charter was a total game changer, and it officially transformed Bahrain into a constitutional monarchy in 2002. King Hamad released all the political prisoners, gave women the right to vote for the first time, and created an elected parliament. So besides its epic history, what's one thing that makes this country so special? To me, it's the geography. And the first thing you have to understand is that Bahrain isn't just one island. It's actually an archipelago, a group of about 30 small islands, all sitting in a bay on the southwestern coast of the Persian Gulf. The name Bahrain actually comes from the Arabic term al-Bahrain, which means two seas. Pretty cool, right? But first, let's talk about the main island. Interestingly enough, it's also called Bahrain, and it makes up almost 7/8 of the country's total land area. In fact, if you're trying to picture how big it is, think of it this way. The entire country of Bahrain is a bit bigger than Singapore, with a total area of about 304 square miles, or about 786.8 square kilometers. The biggest and most important city, Manama, is located on the northeastern tip of the main island. This city is super modern and cosmopolitan, but you can still feel the history and traditions all around you. It's a favourite weekend getaway for visitors from neighbouring Saudi Arabia who love to come here to enjoy the great restaurants and nightlife. Yet even with all that modern fun, the people of Bahrain are still very connected to their heritage and conservative values, which is actually a core part of the country's constitution. So what does the land itself look like? Well, for the most part, it's a flat, desert plain. The highest point in the entire country is a small hill called Jabal ad-Dukhan, which means mountain of smoke. It's only 443 feet high, or about 135 meters. And if you're wondering why smoke, because on hot, humid days, the mist makes it look like it's smoking. And speaking of hot and humid, let's talk about the climate. Bahrain has a pretty straightforward climate with two main seasons. From about June to September, the weather gets really intense. We're talking about average high temperatures that often hit over 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius. It gets even more challenging because of the high humidity. The air can feel thick and heavy, especially when you're near the coast. But then from December to March, the weather completely changes. The temperature drops and the days become much more comfortable. Average high temperatures during the winter are around 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 degrees Celsius. And it can even get a bit chilly at night, with lows around 57 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius. And if you ask me, this is the best time to visit, because the weather is perfect for exploring. Outside of the main island, one of the most fascinating things about Bahrain is how connected it is. While a bunch of the smaller islands are just rocky outcroppings with a few fishermen and quarry workers, many of them are linked by causeways. And did you know, one of the most famous of these bridges is the King Fahd Causeway, a massive structure that's about 15 miles or 24 kilometers long. It's a lifeline that connects Bahrain to the mainland of Saudi Arabia. So people can literally drive from one country to the other in less than 6 hours, which is pretty amazing. Speaking of connections, I've mentioned earlier that Bahrain has always been a major player in trade and a great spot for ships to stop and refuel. Because of its location in the middle of a very important oil-producing region, it has become a major financial and commercial hub. So even though Bahrain itself has a pretty small amount of its own oil and natural gas, it was actually the first country in the region to discover crude oil in 1932. And today it makes a lot of its money by processing oil from other countries and by focusing on banking, financial services, and tourism, which I'll touch on in a bit. But for now, don't think Bahrain is all about oil and finance, because the country is also historically famous for its fishing and pearling industries. In the past, it was also known for its beautiful date palm groves, which were a major source of dates. But due to its arid climate and low water supply, Bahrain can only grow a limited amount of crops and relies on imports for most of its food. Given this, it's pretty clear that Bahrain's geography has played a huge role in shaping its economy and its relationships with the rest of the world. Which brings us to this topic. Bahrain's economy is surprisingly diverse for a small Gulf nation. While it was the first country in the region to discover oil, it has long since shifted its focus. Today, their economy is surprisingly diverse. In fact, most of their money, 84.8% of it, now comes from things that have nothing to do with oil. That just shows how focused they are on building a future that isn't just about what's under the ground. So what's making them so much money? In the first part of 2025, Bahrain's economy grew by 2.7%, from the $47.74 billion GDP in 2024. While their oil business did well with a 5.3% boost, it was the other stuff that really took off. The biggest star is the money business. Banking and insurance. That sector grew by 7.5%. But that's not all. The tourism and food business grew by an amazing 10.3%, which makes total sense considering a lot of people from nearby Saudi Arabia love to cross the causeway for a fun weekend. Other parts of the economy are also growing, like construction, which is up 5.4%, and education, up 2.5%. And get this, the world is taking notice. People and companies from other countries are investing in Bahrain more than ever, which means foreign investment increased by 3.5% in the first part of the year. Now, on the political side, things are a little more complicated. As we mentioned, the country is run by the Khalifa family, who are Sunni Muslims. But most of the people in Bahrain are Shia Muslims, and there's been some tension there for a long time. The government knows this and is trying to make things better. One big step they're taking is trying to rebuild their relationship with Iran, which is a major Shia power in the region. They're hoping that better friendships with their neighbours will help cool things down at home. The government is also working hard to fix a few money problems, because even with all the growth, Bahrain has a lot of public debt, which is expected to be more than its entire economy is worth in the next few years. So, to tackle this, they're building some amazing mega projects like a new metro system and the Bahrain Marina. The goal is to create new jobs and attract even more tourists, which they hope will help get their finances in better shape. So, as you can see, Bahrain is at a pretty important point in its history. It's an economy on the rise with big plans and a forward-thinking attitude. But it's also a society dealing with some deep-rooted challenges. How they handle both of those things will decide what kind of future this incredible kingdom has. But before all that, let's shift our focus to their culture. Like most of the Middle East, Islam is the main religion here, and it's a huge part of daily life. The 5 daily calls to prayer set a sacred rhythm for the day, and during the holy month of Ramadan, the entire country slows down. From sunrise to sunset, Muslims fast because it's a time of quiet reflection, and every night families and friends gather together to break their fast in what feels like a big celebration. But while Islam is central, Bahrain is also home to a wonderfully diverse mix of people. You'll find communities of Christians, Hindus, Buddhists and others, all living and working side by side. In the capital, Manama, it's pretty common to see a mosque, a church and even a Hindu temple, all within a 1-mile radius, which really shows the country's commitment to tolerance. That sense of community and connection is something you see everywhere here, and it all starts with what's most important: family. The whole concept of the extended family is the heart of Bahraini society. Loyalty to family comes first, and it's pretty common for large families to live together in the same home. This strong sense of community is also why you'll see a mix of traditional and modern clothing on the streets. Western clothes are popular, but you'll also see men wearing the classic thawb, which is a full-length white tunic, and the kafia, or the headcloth. For women, the dress code is more relaxed than in some neighbouring countries, but many still wear the hijab or the abaya, which is their long cloak, but that's typically everyday wear. What's really cool is how traditional clothing can also be a form of vibrant self-expression. Festive dresses called thob al-nashal are brightly coloured and often accessorised with stunning gold and pearls. And since we're talking about culture, we can't forget about the food. Bahraini food is all about a delicious mix of flavours, with dishes centred around rice, fish, shrimp and meat. A must-try is mahbous, a popular dish of fish or meat served over rice. But for breakfast, you might find yourself enjoying a huge, communal spread of balalit, which is a dish made with sweet vermicelli noodles with an omelette on top, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, and fresh flatbread. Then, as you wander through the souqs, also known as Bahrain's traditional markets, your senses will go into overdrive. The smell of exotic spices fills the air, and the sight of gold is everywhere, specifically in the gold souk. But beyond all this, Bahrain also has a rich history of art and craftsmanship. You can still find villages where traditional crafts are kept alive. In Al, for instance, local artists are known for their beautiful pottery, while in Karbabad, they weave baskets from palm leaves. And when you're down by the coast, you can actually watch master craftsmen still building dhows, those beautiful traditional wooden boats that have been part of Bahrain's story for centuries. Just imagine the skill and tradition passed down through generations right there in front of you. You'll find this love for their history is everywhere. Take the Bahrain National Museum, for instance. It was the very first museum of its kind in the entire Arab Gulf region. And when you step inside, you can see all these ancient artifacts that tell the incredible story of the island's long past. And they're so dedicated to preserving that history that they have not one but two UNESCO World Heritage Sites. There's the Qalat al-Bahrain, or Bahrain Fort, where you can literally walk around a place that's over 4,000 years old. And connected to that rich past is the Pearling Trail, a path that takes you right through the history of the legendary pearl diving industry that helped make this island famous. But what's so cool about Bahrain is that they don't just live in the past. They're also all about the future and modern excitement. The Bahrain International Circuit is a massive hub for motorsports and has been hosting the Formula One World Championship since 2004. So whether you're a history buff who loves exploring old forts or a total thrill seeker who wants to see the world's fastest cars, Bahrain has something for you. Now, after seeing all this, would you want to explore the country's ancient history or discover its modern thrills? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, if you loved this video, you'll enjoy this next one.